Hello, welcome to Chantel's Homeschool. I'm Chantel, and today I want to share with you my fifth grader stuff that we used this year. So we started out the year with different things, used different things, and ended the year with other things, and his year was kind of a mess. Let me just be perfectly honest. He's my child who's been doing dyslexia therapy, and doing that an hour 4 times a week has really made me need to change kind of how we did things when I realized his load was too heavy. All right, so first off, he was using the Good and the Beautiful Math 5. You can see my video between Saxon and the Good and the Beautiful if you want to hear more about why we switched. But around January or February, we started Math 7-6 because that's what he placed into. And it seems like it's been going well. I was hoping that the lessons would be shorter, but it is taking him the same amount of time as it was to do the Good and the Beautiful Math 5. Which tells me that's just how he does math. Like, there's nothing with either program, that's just how he does it. It wouldn't matter what I used, that's the pace that he would go. He's doing really well with it. I really didn't have very many complaints with the Good and the Beautiful Math 5 for him, other than that. So he mentioned that he didn't feel like it was reviewing enough and that maybe they hadn't taught him stuff, which they had, he just hadn't remembered. So we switched, and I haven't really had any of those same complaints, and it's going well. I am also using my math assistant with him, which I highly recommend. Definitely check out my description box to get my code so you can get a free trial and some money off. I've used it now for a few years and been very happy with it. So one thing that I noticed for him using the Good and the Beautiful is it didn't review the basic facts enough. So I added these math facts. I got them online. I'm not even sure what the program's called. It's called Mastering Math Facts. And each day I'm having him do one of these little sections. There's addition and subtraction, multiplication and division. And right now he's focusing on multiplication. He's also using extra math. He just really hasn't memorized those facts yet, even though he's really close, despite all the other things that I've done. So I added this, and that has helped him a lot to be able to go a little quicker, because I find if they don't have those facts fairly solid by the time they start pre-algebra, it takes a long time no matter the curriculum you use. And I realize most people have calculators on their phones, and so I've heard a lot of arguments that, oh, they don't need to memorize them because we've got them on our phone. However, my husband doesn't have them memorized, and I can tell you I can get them the answers a lot quicker than he can find them on his phone. So I don't feel like that's a very valid excuse, because it's really hard to like pull out your phone and find the right app and click on it and then type it in. And by that time you could already have that simple fact. Just say it. So I don't feel like that's a valid argument. So I still make sure that my kids focus on the facts. So once we added this, things started going better. Okay, so now for the one that kind of was tricky for us. We started the year with the Good and the Beautiful level 4, and things just started getting kind of hard and heavy for him, it seemed like, around December. So in January, I switched him. I still have the older version of level 4 on PDF. So I printed some of those out, and we tried that for about a month. He came to me after about a month and said, "Mom, I don't feel like they're explaining the grammar concepts. I don't get it." He liked the writing, but he didn't feel like the old version was explaining the grammar as well as the new version. So we went back to this, and he hates the writing. In the writing, we were not doing the spelling already because he's doing that for an hour a day with his tutor. And so at that point we switched. We were just doing the writing. So at that point we were just doing the writing, and he hated it. Like, it was just a fit every time it was time to do it. So I was just trying copy work. He was copying it. We were talking about some concepts. So I quickly realized I didn't have a strong enough grammar background to continue helping him to do that long term for next year. It was okay for a couple of weeks, but that just wasn't going to work for me. It would be a lot of extra work when I still had, several other children to work with. So I realized that wasn't going to work. So what I did is I actually ordered a couple of things to try for next year, and I was reading through it, and I was like, he's not gonna like any of these any better. I downloaded like 4 different samples because several companies will give you a couple of lessons for free, sometimes a whole week for free. And I was like, he's not gonna like these any better than the Good and the Beautiful because he just doesn't like the writing. And all of them have him write. And I just realized that just wasn't going to work. So we pulled back out the Good and the Beautiful level 4. So this last week, maybe 2 weeks, I pulled this back out. And what I am doing now, and I don't know whether, and I'm planning on doing this next year as well, is I'm actually teaching him the writing lesson. We go over the grammar a little more than normal, but the grammar has always been fine with the Good and the Beautiful. He has picked it up better than any of my other kids. The part that was hard was the writing. So what I am doing now is we're splitting this into 2 days, the writing. I read the instructions to him. I realized because of his dyslexia, he was having a hard time reading this and always understanding what it wanted him to do. It seemed really overwhelming. So if I read it, it's a lot less overwhelming. And then when it has some examples, I will write an example on the whiteboard and he will look at it. And like for this lesson, we circled some things that he could write about, and then we wrote up a rough draft on the whiteboard, and then he is going to finish writing it in his own handwriting here. But basically, where this should be independent for most kids, I've realized that for him, I need to be teaching him more one-on-one because he just doesn't quite pick up on the things reading it himself because, and I think it must have to do with his dyslexia. Like I don't know any other reason. So that's what we're doing. When it came down to it, I just realized it didn't really matter what I picked. He was going to have a hard time. The problem was that I needed to be teaching him more thoroughly than just having him try to be independent, which has always been kind of my goal with my kids, is to get them to be more independent. And for him, it's because of, other circumstances, I've realized that that's just not going to happen for him at the same age as my other kids. As far as the Good and the Beautiful readers, I've heard a lot of complaints about these, that they didn't like them. They felt they were boring. He is a very interesting kid. He has loved all of these stories. He's really enjoyed them. In fact, he read ahead because he wanted to hear what happened. So I think it's going to depend on your kid. He is my child who is used to reading older books. And I've noticed most children nowadays don't enjoy reading those because they're hard. The language is hard. There's more character to the books. And so they're harder to understand the storyline because it's just a more difficult, challenging read than your average book somebody writes at that same level today. But he does really well with that, oddly enough, even with his dyslexia. So he has actually really enjoyed these readers a lot. Other things that he reads and enjoys are things like Louis L'Amour books or, things like that. So he's not reading like easy level stuff, but he's enjoying these. So I was pleasantly surprised to find that these worked so well. So the other thing with him is I did the same thing with him as with my 8th grader. We did science together as a family and history. He was doing the Sunlight level 5 readers, and I loved their other readers that we did up to grade 4. The grade 5, I have to say, he probably only actually read 2 or 3 of them. Many of the books just did not fit our family standards, which I hate to say that because I really love Sunlight. And they gave me the books. This was a sponsored thing for them. So I just tried to show in my reviews, maybe not the books that we loved, but just what they had for his age. But most of them just didn't fit our family standards. So he didn't read many of the books. He actually only read 2 or 3 of them because so many just didn't fit within our standards. I think it's because they were geared toward middle school. And so it was covering a lot of hard topics like foster care or death in the family or things like that. But I just didn't care for the way that the author of the books handled those situations. The Sunlight Reader's Guide did really great at coming up with discussion questions and warning you of different things. It just wasn't a great fit for our family that year. So I know that when my daughter gets up to that point and my next youngest son, we are going to be skipping the level 5 readers because it just wasn't a great fit for us. I just want to be perfectly honest. I know that I'm sponsored for a lot of these things that I'm showing you, but I always try to give like our most honest review. And the most honest review is level 5 readers just didn't fit with our family. So I ended up just getting other readers for him to read and trying to follow the same sunlight methodology. And that worked okay. For the science, like I said, we did some of the Good and Beautiful science units and God's Design, and that worked pretty well. I think he's ready for his own independent science, so it worked pretty well for this year. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to have him do his own science next year, because it just didn't work as well with the family this year as in years past. So we're gonna try that, and we may go back to doing family. I don't know. That's the nice thing, is we can change things. So science was kind of an okay thing this year. I didn't feel as wonderful about the things we did this year as I did last year. So I don't know. It wasn't a bad year, but I didn't feel like this was our favorite year either. And so that wraps up what my 5th grader did. I'm going to be sharing my younger kids soon, so stay tuned. Please like and subscribe if you haven't, so that you'll be sure to not miss those videos, so you can hear how our year went and how we liked the things that we did. We'll see ya. Bye.